Hi everyone, I'm Yaakov Barr and welcome to Between the Lines, powered by J18. This is the podcast where we talk about all the subjects that are really important as well as those that we find hard to talk about. We're going to talk about emotional health, we're going to talk about relationships, we're going to talk about life challenges and the daily struggles that we all have to encounter. This episode is something that I've actually really been looking forward to. Racheli Ollech is here. And I'm really excited to hear your story of change, huge change of growth that you and your husband have taken from Satmar in Yerushalayim to Hendon and lots in between. Thank you so much for joining us.
I feel very privileged to be here.
So I think in a way the best way to start would be, can you give us sort of a bit of a picture of life? I guess 10 years ago you didn't know what a podcast was, and to be sitting in a studio talking to a foreign man would have been a no-no as well. So, maybe give us a bit of a picture of what life was for the first, 20 years of your life?
Okay, it's quite a lot to squeeze into an hour of a podcast, but we'll try my best.
Okay, amazing.
So started off in Yerushalayim and Satmar, like you mentioned. Growing up, very typical Hasidish, very good girl, like not a rebel in any way. And it came to the age of getting married. So a typical Hasidish engagement would be that the parents would meet up before they would meet the bride and groom. In a sense, I actually met my mother-in-law before I met my husband. And I know for some people it sounds really strange, but where I come from,
that's the norm. Yeah.
You meet the parents before you meet the groom, and then we just met for 45 minutes in my parents' living room. They were hiding in the kitchen, and to be honest, it was actually the day of my grandmother's yahrzeit, so there was supposed to be a yahrzeit Suda in our house. So most of my siblings were already there. This is not typical, but they were already there in my parents' house, and they shoved them into the rooms and they locked them the door and they say, be very quiet because a show is happening in the living room as we speak. So it was kind of like a given that the shidduch is happening even before we met, because everything was ready. The l'chaim was ready.
So it's a done deal.
It's a done deal. We met up for 45 minutes. We sat in front of each other. That didn't make a huge difference if the shidduch is happening or not. And this is very typical Hasidish in the specific community where I grew up. I wouldn't say that all Hasidim are like that. And Satmar Yerushalayim is typically like that.
Yeah.
So to be fair, I saw him by the door. And you say, first impression counts. It was a very first impression. I saw him and I immediately knew that we're going to be best friends. Don't ask me how, but I had this feeling, that it's going to be okay, I know that a lot of people don't have that, but I was very privileged to have that. So we met for 45 minutes, and my parents were knocking on the door, opening the door. My dad called me into the kitchen. His parents went into the living room, and they said to me, you want to get engaged? Yes. It's not like a question. It's like a statement.
So how old were you then?
I was 18.
You were 18?
Yeah. And my husband is also 18. He's 2 weeks older than me, so we're actually pretty much the same age. And we also the same status in a family. So I'm number 6 out of 12. He's number 6 out of 11. So we're right in the middle. And usually an engagement lasts for like 7 to 8, 9 months, and then you get married. By us, it was a year, because both of our parents were pregnant for the last time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I already had nieces and nephews in that point, and also my husband had. But they were pregnant for the last time, and they didn't know it's the last time, but they didn't want to have the wedding when they were pregnant. So they said, okay, let's wait a year. And actually both of them had a miscarriage. So it's the last pregnancy. So anyway, we got married. So for the whole year, we didn't see each other. We didn't talk to each other. I just got presents from his mom, and he got presents from my dad.
Were you looking forward to the marriage?
So it's a very interesting one, because you can envision your wedding. You can envision what's going to happen by the wedding, but you can't envision beyond that. Like, it's blank, because you're going to start a life with someone that you have no clue who he is. Like, I get to know his sisters and his mom and his side of the family, but I actually don't get to know him. So it's a bit of a scary one. Like, you're getting married to someone, you have no idea who he is. And then he comes to you for the first time after the engagement. You see him after a year. It's just when he comes to cover you with a veil by the Badecken. And to be honest, when I looked up, I didn't recognize him, because it was a year. And, in this age, the beard grows more. So like, he had like a tiny beard when we got engaged, and then when it came to the wedding, it's like it completely changed. And for him as well, it's the only time he actually sees me with hair, because he comes to do the Badecken. For 1 minute, he sees me with the hair, and then straight away, when he turns around and he goes to the chuppah, then my mom would cover. She did it.
Oh, she would then cover your hair?
Yeah, she covered my hair with a tichel, like it's called a chopko. I don't know if you know what it is. It's
I'm learning new things.
So it's like a bit like a toe band. Some people call it tefillin, because it looks a bit like a tefillin. It has like top part.
Yeah.
So she made sure all my hair's in, and also takes off the jewelry. That's a normal. I think everybody does that, right? You don't go to the chuppah with the jewelry. So basically, he saw me for a minute with my hair, and that's it. Because the next day, after the wedding, my mom came with my sister, and they shave off your hair. And that's a normal, typical...
But it must be very hard. I mean, you don't know any other way. That's what you expect.
Yes. So in a sense, I saw it happening by my sister. I'm the second daughter, so I saw it happening by my sister. And it's something that you're being prepared for, that this is what's going to happen. And you think, okay, that's happening. And when it happened, I wasn't in front of a mirror. People would picture it. You look in front of the mirror, you see how... I wasn't in front of a mirror. Just heard like a buzzing sound. Like, I didn't really grasp what's happening. And the reason why my sister came is because it's in the middle of Sheva Bracha. So my husband's gone to Shachris, and my mom went home straight away after, so I can't stay alone. So she was there as well, because it's not like some people say in unorthodox, there's like a whole scene, the famous scene of how she shaves her head, that it's incorrect, that there's no crowd. There is no crowd, but my sister was there, and very often some of the sisters would be there. So it's not like a show, and it's
not ceremony.
It's not a ceremony, no. It's just something that happens. And then after I got pregnant, I decided I don't want to shave anymore. But I was really scared, because...
was that the first if we call it a rebellious thing or something, when you sort of were going beyond what you were meant to be doing? Is that the first time you've been expressed that wish, really?
I could say it was from the first one. There was one more thing that happened before. I will come to it in a minute. But that one was a pretty strong one, because shaving your hair is one of the key things. Like, if you don't shave your hair, then you can't work in the school. You can't send the kids to that.
How do they know? They just know.
Everybody knows. It's something that you can't really hide. And to be fair, I did hide it, because I did grow my hair afterwards. And it was a very hard job to hide it.
Really?
It was a very hard job.
That's giving us like a bit of a window in the whole life, where sort of everything you do is like being watched and monitored.
And judged.
And judged.
Yeah.
And it's very sort of tight, and you have to sort of fit into the mold.
Yeah, 100%. And if you don't fit exactly, then you have very heavy consequences. So I really wanted to stop. I wanted to stop shaving, but I was very, very scared. And I wasn't a rebel. I was a good girl. So I ended up calling from my phone I made like that it will be anonymous, so nobody can see my number. And I called this rabbi in Yerushalayim, and I asked him, am I allowed to grow my hair? And then he said to me, are you going to cover it? And I say, yes. And he said, is your husband okay with that? And I says, yes. So then he says, it's absolutely fine. Hearing these words meant the world for me, because I wasn't trying to be a bad girl. I wasn't trying to do something wrong. But it's so wrong to do it that I needed this permission from this rabbi. And I think there's a lot of things in life, especially when you come from the Hasidic world, where everything is, I wouldn't say Hasidic world, because Hasidic world is so broad, but like specific sect and very, very strict Hasidic lifestyle, where everything is being dictated, and who you should marry, how you should dress, how you should breathe, how you should think, in all different ways, that if you try to do something different...
Yeah, there's very little freedom for like expression.
Very little.
You're sort of, you're really put into a very tight structure. And
there's not much space for creativity as well. They shine out in like unexpected ways. Like, they would do incredible, beautiful sukkahs, because this is the only place where they can really express their art and artistic skills. They would do really nice mishlach manos. They will do like really nice dress ups for Purim and stuff like that, because they have the creativity in themselves. It's just there's a very, very limited spaces where it can come out. For myself as well, I'm a very creative person, and art was always something between my hands. So I ended up making this massive, massive pictures for my parents' sukkah, and they cost a fortune. Like, they're miniatures, and they're built, and they're painted, and I really enjoyed it. But that was my way.
That was where you could express it. So you're married, you take this big step of deciding that you're not going to shave your hair. Your husband's happy with it. Is he already showing, like at that time, how's he feeling about Satmar Yerushalayim?
So he actually comes from Bnei Brak. He comes from Chernobyl. And Chernobyl is very similar to Satmar, but his specific family is very, very, very strict. Chernobyl is not that strict. Like, there's some people that wear wigs there, but his parents specifically are very strict. Like, his mom changed from a wig to a tichel, so she took on herself even more. So for him, coming to Yerushalayim was like to leave behind everything: his friends, his shul, his community. And he's a very social person. And it was very difficult for him. Because imagine that. You wake up in the morning and you know you're going to your wedding. And then when you finish the wedding, you're going into an apartment that you never saw. You never went in there with a strange woman in a strange city. You're going to go to a strange shore. You're going to start living close to your in-laws that you don't know. From one second to the other one.
It's very overwhelming.
It's not just overwhelming, it's even a bit traumatic. Because you leave everything behind. And he's such a social person. He needs his friends. And then they give them like hadracha that, Shana or Shina, you shouldn't go and you shouldn't come. So for him, it was very, very difficult. But as we came into this house, after the chuppah, after the wedding, and we stepped into this house, it was like we decided we're going to start from stage one, that we're not starting from being married. We were just sitting and talking for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, like talking until 3, 4 a.m. And then we woke up in the morning and talked again and went for walks and talked and talked and talked. And we kind of like felt like we have to catch up so much.
You were creating the relationship.
Yeah, because we had nothing. Mm-hmm. And it was a very beautiful time. It was very stressful as well because, you're still strangers, but you're slowly not becoming strangers. And about 2 weeks into our marriage, my husband dared to ask me a question. And then he said, Racheli, do you like lipa schmelzer? And I said to him, lipa? So I was like trying to read his face and say, yeah, I actually do like him. Now, lipa schmelzer, I don't know if you know, but he is a modern Hasidic singer. And in our community, it was a big no-no. Like, no one was allowed to listen to him. And he came and he asked me, so I kind of read between the lines that he is interested in exploring a bit more. So then that was like my first clue. So then his birthday was coming up. So I went to Galpaz. I don't know if you know Galpaz.
Yes, everyone knows Galpaz. Well, they didn't before when everyone had CDs or cassettes. Now I don't think they're so relevant.
It's still actually relevant because a lot in the Hasidic
community,
they don't have any.
But so then they wouldn't be going to Galpaz to get lipa schmelzers.
Yeah, so I went to Galpaz and I bought them actually an MP3. And I asked them, they asked me do you want me to dismantle the radio? And I said, no, leave it on. So that was this was actually the first time when we really understood.
It's such a different world, just hearing someone like lipa schmelzer, who, yes, we know is not the conventional type of person or singer, whatever, but to think that is considered really rebellious, and he's probably nervous to bring it up and to ask you, and but it just shows in your world in Yerushalayim, in Satmar, that was tantamount to someone doing horrific things.
It wasn't that bad, but it's quite you could learn from it that you kind of open to more. So then I took the clue and I took it a bit further. So it started with the MP3 and then I brought in a computer in the house. Don't ask me how I got movies. I don't actually remember, but Underground world. And we were a bit like teenagers. We started watching movies.
So he was in Kollel officially at that time? Yeah. So no one would have ever have known about this. So he's got his beard and he's learning. And meanwhile, there's a dual life. So you've got that, and then, once he comes back, then it's like a cinema in the house.
Yeah, and it was quite scary in the beginning. I remember him saying that he's a bit afraid that what's going to happen if we continue watching movies. And we watched it very cautiously, but as we went in and we just got dragged into it and we just didn't stop watching. We watched and watched and watched like teenagers.
Just like it almost, those movies must have opened up like a whole new world that you'd never seen before.
So I always like to say, Windows, the...
Yes, yeah.
It's literally a window to the world. The computer was like a window for us. We, for first time, started to see that obviously cinema and cinematic productions are not actually portraying reality. But for us, this was the closest we could see beyond what we know. So it was something. It's a problem because then you can imagine the life looks like that. But it was giving us just enough to understand that there was a world out there. So
some would say it's not necessarily a happier world.
No, I wouldn't say. It was a very big exposure, especially when you're exposed by yourself and there's no one actually monitoring what you're watching. It was pretty scary. Like, we ended up watching quite scary stuff and we learned to kind of say that, that's I'm not watching. And like, it's kind of, you have to learn it yourself. But we at least had each other. So it's a big difference when you are by yourself in the journey and when you have someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But with that being very exciting, I got pregnant straight away, like expected. And within 2 years, I had 3 pregnancies, 2 children, 1 miscarriage in between. And life is going on. It's not like we changed. It's just like an internal change. It's not, nobody sees it. It's not visible. I did hide my hair. It was very difficult because I kind of had to wear a band to make sure that my tichel doesn't fall backwards. And on top of it, another one. It kind of like was a pressure bomb on my head. And it was literally a pressure bomb. And I, at the time, we moved from Yerushalayim to Bet Shemesh, and Bet Shemesh is very hot. It was like about 40 degrees there on a normal day. So I remember coming home, and I was so hot from hiding under this that I would just come home, take down the blinds, just take off my tichel and put my head under this sink and open, just not to pass out. It was. It was a very stressful.
Plus, were you working at the time? Were you, what were you doing on a day-to-day basis?
I was working. He was in Kollel. Kollel is, I was working as a teacher and in the afternoon as a tutor, and having the 2 children. It was
full on.
Full on. I remember coming home at 1, setting up lunch, and in Israel lunch is like supper. So you eat like fleischig miti. And then finishing supper, putting my daughter by the babysitter, going out in the afternoon for another couple of hours, coming back, doing bedtime with the kids. Just literally being on a loop the whole time. And when we arrived to Bet Shemesh, I was pregnant then for the second time, not for the third time, but second child. We kind of had to start over because it's a new city, you need to find new jobs. Because I was like very pregnant, nobody actually wanted to hire me because I was just about to have the baby. And we needed some money to go on. And then my husband decided that he doesn't want to stay anymore in Kollel. It's too much. He was expected to stay longer, but then he said it doesn't find any more. He wants to start working. But the problem is that, where is it going to work?
Yes,
and there's no qualification, no actual jobs that are suitable for him. It was a very difficult when I go back to that time, it always takes me back to tears, because you being supported by your parents with rent as long as you are in kollel, that's the norm. And the second you go out of kollel, then you're not supported anymore. But you don't have where to go for work. You don't have a job. And it was such a stressful time that my husband just decided to find any job possible and just do whatever it takes. So somebody offered him, would you be a cleaner in a yeshiva? So he said yes. In case, what would I do if not to keep your kids, fed? So I remember him going every night to the yeshiva, and you can imagine what a yeshiva looks like after having hundreds of little teenagers. He literally had to hose down the walls and the tables. And I would go with my pregnant belly, pushing a buggy and help him out with whatever I can, putting the farm away. I remember the yeshiva was surrounded by buildings, residential buildings, and you could see from the windows, who works in there. And I remember having quite a few curious faces looking and pointing and whispering, because this is not a normal job that someone wants to work in. It was a very difficult time. And with that, we didn't make ends meet. I remember at the time going with 10 shekel to the shop. And I knew whatever goes into this 10 shekel is going to be for the next 2-3 days. And you stand in the aisle and you think, should I take flour or should I take bread? Because with flour, I can make more bread than actually
Those
bread.
Are hard questions even just to hear. So you were really struggling with poverty, and were you very much at this point, did your parents realize that you were leaving the life that they had brought you up in, or they didn't realize yet?
They did have some suspicion, but the thing is, we didn't want to ask from them for any help, because we knew that if we're going to ask and we're going to tell them what our situation is, then it comes with conditions. It comes with, okay, so I will support you, but you have to do X, Y, Z. And we didn't want that. We said, okay, let's just leave it and make our own way. And luckily from there, when you push hard and you find your way. So I had a baby, and then I went to work in the worst job in the world. I did fundraising on a telephone, those telephone lines where you call
fundraising is one of the worst jobs, but fundraising on a telephone, that is really...
No, but this is even worse, because what I was fundraising is for people to give their names that they will be davened in Ma'ar Balanes Keva, and trying to make them make a membership or something for that. But I said, I'm going to just do it because I really wanted to study to become a chef, and because I have a really, really strong passion for cooking and so I was working there, and I managed to have some money to go to study to become a chef. And my husband found a job in a shoe shop, but it's a very specific shoe shop. It's not a regular shoe shop. It's a shoe shop only for men and children, because you don't want to start giving shoes out for women. It's fast nicht. So he was working there in the shop, and they really, really liked him there. He was very successful. And I ended up working. So I started the studying, and as I was studying and working in the telephone company, I found an advert of a hotel in Kibbutz Chafetz Chaim.
Yes,
and you know which one. And they said that they're looking for a chef. So I was telling them that I'm still studying. Would you take me in? And they said, sure. So I started very quickly. I didn't work so long in this telephone company. And I started working in Kibbutz Chafetz Chaim, but there, to commute to work, I needed to take 3 buses plus a hitchhike every day. And I would leave the house at 5 a.m. and come back at 4.
And who was looking after the children?
Good question. So Avi, my husband, would work from 12 till about 10 p.m. So he would take the kids to the nursery and I would do the afternoon. So when I come back at about 4, I would pick them up, do the bedtime routine, give them supper, put them to bed, and go to bed with them. So what happened is that we basically didn't see each other. I would leave at 5. He would come back at 10 when I would be asleep already. So we basically saw each other from Shabbos to Shabbos. And it was for quite a while like that. I'd say 7 to 8 months.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a very tricky situation to be in.
So you're living a life where sort of, as you said, sort of parallel lives because you just had to, and then you move again.
So before we moved, so what happened is the reason why we moved. So what happened is that we don't see each other at all, right? And only on Shabbos we have the time to communicate. So one Shabbos we were just walking in Bnei Brak. Our kids were sleeping in my mother-in-law's house. And I think I had 3 breakdown moments in my life. And this was one of them. This was the first one where it was the most difficult time that I can remember. We were just walking on the street, and then Avi says to me, listen, Racheli, this life is not for me. I can't. I'm resenting everything that's around me. I can't do anything. I can't daven. I can't go to shul. I can't connect. I'm not there anymore. And he says to me, look, if you prefer me to stay like that, and stay Hasidish with the Shtreimel, with the Beketcher, with all the Shmoyne B'Godim, I'm happy to put a show on for you. And just stay like that you will be happy. But inside, nothing is there anymore. Like, I feel nothing towards Judaism, towards God. Like, there was so much...
was that anger, or was there just, like, apathy?
I think it was a lot of anger, because when you're so restricted that you can't do anything, and you can't breathe, and you can't explore life, and you can't be who you are, it's just so difficult to love Judaism, because this is the cause for everything. It's not, this is what you told, it's this the cause for everything. And for me, like, you know, I was open. I wanted to watch movies. I wanted to dress nicer, but I didn't want to throw everything away. I didn't want to say, okay, I don't believe in God and I just want to become second. It was never the path that I wanted to take. And it was really, really scary. It felt like it was an earthquake under my legs, because it's what we're doing now.
Well, that's literally, it's just, you know, throwing into question everything you've ever believed or done in your whole life.
You don't
just
know
in that
anything.
one conversation.
In one conversation. So we finish off this conversation. Somehow I managed to keep a steady face on and not show Avi that I'm all devastated about it. And then we're going back to a routine where we don't see each other. And every single day I go to work on my 3 buses, wearing sunglasses and crying the whole way there. I get to work, I work in the kitchen, and I'm crying and crying, and I can't stop crying. It's just like, I don't know what's happening from here. Like, what we're doing. it's pretending and continuing like that is one option, but what kind of option is that? So one of my colleagues came to me and she says to me, listen, Racheli, something is going on. What's going on? Like you're coming in every day, you're crying like that. It's just, so I opened up and I told her, and she said to me, look, you have to take a day off of work and you have to ask Avi to take a day off of work. Just go out, figure it out, decide what you want to do. Like it's not, you can't continue like that. Mm-hmm. So I called up Avi and we took a day off both, and we decided to go to Ashdod and making a bit of a fun day out of it. It was very funny because I came with my very Hasidic clothes, my tights and my tichel and everything. And we ended up going into one of the local shops in Ashdod, and I picked up like a t-shirt and a skirt and a pair of tights and a pair of sneakers. And it was like a very cheap shop that you know. And I went into the changing room and Avi was waiting outside, and I come out of the changing room and Avi's like open up his eyes like that, and his like jaw falls, and he says, I didn't know you know how to dress. And I said to him, it's not like I don't know, like I just never had the chance to.
Was that very exciting for him and for you?
It was very exciting because it's like I never had the chance to walk around like that in the street looking normal. Like, okay, what's considered normal, but...
So the shopkeeper must have got quite a shock. Like,
yeah, I don't know if you saw my video on Instagram from the changing picture from 2011 to 2022. So it's a bit of a scenario like that. You see that and you see that in the same day. So we ended up, we took a little... we went to a restaurant, we went on a boat, and we discussed it. And I said to Avi, listen, jumping from here to here is not an option for me. Like jumping from being Hasidic to become secular is not an option. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how you changing from title-bum socks to wear jeans, and like, I don't know. I physically, technically don't know. And I also don't want to throw everything away. So I said to him, let's do steps that we can take. So in Hebrew, you say, Akev b'tzad agudal. You know how the Kohen Gadol went up the Mizbeach. So like, you step one step, you see if you're comfortable, you take another step. That was the approach. Mm-hmm. Let's do it slow. Let's not...
What did he want?
He wanted to just
go all over.
Yeah. And I said to him, I can't. And he said to me, okay, if that's the way how we do it. So what's our first step? So the first step was to move from Ashdod, from Bet Shemesh to Ashdod. And the reason why we chose Ashdod is because some of my colleagues work there, so they could help me find a place. And in that time, it was a very miserable time. We were there for 8 months, and it was a very difficult time. Even though we had the freedom to slowly express ourselves and become who we are, because we were like not in the face of everyone, the rumors went back to the family, and everybody was starting to talk about us. And it's the worst feeling when people talking behind your back. And people were starting to say that we've become completely secular, and that I...
Did your parents call you up?
My parents called me up, and my in-laws tried to send like a therapist. I don't know if he is really a therapist that should speak to Avi. is Magachir. Literally came to our house. I don't know how he got the address, and knocked on the door, and Avi was calling me on the phone, and I wasn't in the house, and said to me, is by the door. What am I supposed to do? Like they tried in all different ways to kind of persuade us to come back, and we didn't really change. Like my daughter was going to a ger Bet Yaakov.
But for them, this was for parents who you know, this is their life. their biggest fear is what you're doing.
Yes. But in that time as well, it was a very difficult time because we didn't have community, we didn't have friends, we had the whole community against us, and we also didn't know where we are. Like, in one hand, you dress like Avi was still having his payas in his beard, so he was trying to put it up, and then he cut some of his payas, and it was tucking in his beard. It's like a complicated time where you figure yourself out. You don't know exactly where you are. And then
because you're creating a new path where you've got nothing, no precedent. This is completely forging a life that you've not been prepared for ever.
You don't know what's out there either, and you don't know people as well. Then some ex-Hasidim were trying to cling to us, and we didn't actually like it so much because they would often go out very strongly, like very drastically, very dramatically, and we tried not to do that, so we kind of stayed within ourselves. And then Avi came up with this most genius idea, and he said, I have a British passport. I've never been in London. Maybe we should move to live in London. I said to him, but we don't know anyone in London. So he says, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we can start fresh and come to London. So how we made it from Ashdod to London, I can't even tell you how it happened. I feel like the second we decided we're going to move to London, it was kind of like there was angels around in each corner that helped us to do that in the most seamless way ever. I don't think anyone had such a easy relocation than us. And I didn't expect it to be so easy. I expected it to be very, very difficult. I'm talking about finding an apartment online and finding someone that would actually want to rent us an apartment. Because who is this couple? Like, who would guarantee that they pay for me rent? Like, how would you know that they are liable enough, right? So I had one cousin here in London that is more modern, but I never knew him. So I found my auntie on Facebook. I messaged her and she connected me to my cousin, and he helped us out. He showed us around here. Then when we moved here to London, there was neighbors, friends, that just people that went through their day-to-day life, and they didn't think that they are doing such an amazing thing. They just changed our life.
They were giving you community and support, which is a lifeline for probably you guys who hadn't felt like that for a long time.
It's not just we had no one here. I remember walking up the street in Sunny Gardens Road, and we were with the suitcase and the buggy trying to go up, and one of the neighbors saw us and says, are you new here? And I said, yeah, we moved in today. And it says, it's Erev Pesach, where you're going to have your chametz meals, because I assume your house is clean for Pesach. And I say, yeah, it was 2 weeks before Pesach. So she says to us, come to us for Shabbos. And I was like looking at her, and I was opening my eyes very wide and say, you don't know my name. How do you invite me to your house? Like, why are you doing something like that? And I think this is something amazing in the Northwest community, is the amount of chesed and the amount of people that they're just good people.
Yes,
and
yes.
they're just.
But they'll never probably know what that did to you, because they're just being nice. But actually, for you, it's much more than that.
She was basically the first person of a wider network, because her husband told my husband about which shul to go, and then he went to shul and he found this Israeli guy, and this Israeli guy connected him to the other Israeli guy, and then she invited us, and she told me about the shul, and then
yes, a bit by bit you start feeling, hey, this is a home.
Yeah. So that was Northwest London for us. It was the biggest surprise. I said to myself, okay, we're going to come to London. It's going to take us about 2 years to settle in. Apparently, we got invited for the first Shabbos we were here.
Amazing.
That's incredible.
Amazing. So you're feeling very comfortable in Northwest London, but meanwhile, you're 1 million miles away from your parents and their life. What's your relationship, I guess, now? Or let's actually backtrack a bit. How did they react to you going to Hendon?
So it was a given for them. It wasn't anything that we asked them in any way. We just told them that's what's happening. And we just did it. And they, at that point, they were kind of watching from the side. And they were hoping and praying that we're staying through. And as I told them, that my children are going into Chabad nursery. So she was like, phew. Like I could
hear. Is that a relief for them?
Because they were scared. They were completely leaving everything and we're not going to keep anything. So in a sense, it was like the cards was in our hand because we left. We were not pushed away. Mm-hmm. So they were like hoping for anything little that we will give them. So then we started our chapter 2 in life in London, and it was a very exciting time and very interesting because we came here we both didn't speak any English, and we basically had to learn as we were here. We went to ABC classes in Ashdod before we came, but I remember going that Shabbos to that lovely, lovely woman, Talia. I remember coming out of there, my head was pumping because I understood 50% of the conversation and I was trying to communicate. And it was very difficult. Mm-hmm. But we slowly picked up the language. We sent the kids to the nursery. Google Translation was the biggest friend. And we're continuing life. And life starts slowing down a bit. My husband found a job where actually you met him for the first time in Shefa. And he really liked his boss. And it was like a really good location to get to know a lot of people and getting to know the community a bit. And life is slowing down a bit. And back home, my sister, she is 5 years younger than me. She decides to also do a very similar journey that I did. And she started it off together when we started. So when we moved to Ashdod, when we were in Bet Shemesh, she already started. And when we moved to Ashdod, she finally left. And the way how she did it was very, very different to what we did. We did very slow steps, and she did very drastic steps. So my sister, she was always struggling when she was younger. She always didn't find her space socially, and kind of like people would say something is off. But she didn't have a diagnosis. She didn't have, people didn't really understand what was happening. And by the age of 15, she decided to just run away from home. I was married at the time. And she left a note, like the books, She left a note under her pillow and she said that, she ran away to find her way, her path.
Had you spoken with her about her feelings towards?
Not by that point. Only after she left. Yeah, when she kind of left the house and she did something really interesting that usually nobody does. She went to a monastery, to a cloister, because this is what she knew from the books, and she was so ignorant because she was like, okay, I don't want to be Hasidic, so I'm going to become.
Yeah, that's definitely not a normal connection.
So I would say that from her decisions, you could see how she was struggling mentally. It wasn't a regular.
She was lost.
She was lost, yeah, very lost. And then since she ran away, we found her somehow through cameras, but since then it was a slope down. She went to a special home for teenagers, and they then struggle, and it was a bit of a struggle. My parents were a bit lost. They didn't know what to do because the mental health awareness is not very profound in the Hasidic community, and there's not many resources. There's plenty of therapists, so-called, that they are not certified, or they don't, and sometimes they make more damage than actually helping. So her timeline was like, by the age of 17, she got married. She didn't have a shidduch like me. She had a shidduch where she met a cousin for a couple of times. They went out, and she had like a modern wedding. She was wearing a wig. She liked him. Like, very, very different than mine. And you could see how my parents were like really trying to come towards her. I don't know why they thought marrying her off by the age of 17 was a good idea. She actually wanted it as well, because sometimes the illusion of like getting married is like, okay, we're out of the control of the parents. Now I can do whatever I want.
And sometimes parents also feel that when they're settled in married life, and that's going to solve all the problems.
Yeah. So I must stress out that it wasn't a forced marriage. She wanted to marry. She wanted to go into it, and she liked him. And it was a very big out of the comfort zone of my parents to do that. Very, very different and of the community. And obviously what people would say, they were still going along with that. But the marriage didn't last for very long. After 5 months, she asked me to come with her to the Beis Din, and they got divorced. And from that moment, I feel like I kind of lost her, because she went into this slope of drugs, not healthy relationships, a community that I didn't want to connect to, the ex-Hasidim that I was speaking about. Because they have so much trauma, and they kind of go sometimes too far, and she went with them. And by that point, I was moving to London, and she was going through her journey. I was going through my journey. She stayed there. I went to London. But from there on, things got bad in her side. And every so often, she would call me, and she would cry and tell me what's going on. And then I would hear from my mom that she was hospitalized for self-harming. And then it started from self-harming to go to attempt of suicide. And it was about 3 to 4 times that was like proper attempt for suicide, where every time this happens, your heart is like pumping so hard. When, I speak to my mom and I speak to her, and there was, you don't know what to do with that. You're very, very lost, because in one hand, I'm doing my journey. She's doing her journey, and I'm doing a very similar journey to her in their eyes, in the community's eyes, but I know that it's not the same journey. And then people would talk the same way about me, saying, oh, eventually she's going to become like her. And we're still siblings, there's a lot of resemblance. It was a very difficult time. And then I was living here already for about 5 years. 4 years. And that 4 years, I haven't been back to my family. I was very much into building my own life. And it was also easier that she was there. I was here, so I could separate myself and really build my life here. Meanwhile, we're continuing life here. And one day, my husband comes home from work and he says to me, I'm not feeling well. And I said to him, okay, what's going on? He's like all shaky, and he goes into bed, puts the cover on top of him and says, I'm not feeling well. It's a flu, what is it? And we're waiting, a day or two, and things doesn't go better. And he says, I feel like I'm having a heart attack, or he couldn't put it into words. And I said, okay, let's go to the doctor. And we go to the doctor, and then we try to do blood tests and ECGs and all of this, and everything comes back okay. And we say, so what's happening? He feels dizzy and drowsy, and what's going on? So then a friend of ours said, maybe go to this private doctor. Maybe he will see something that nobody sees. So we went to this private doctor, and he looks through all his papers, and then he says to us, would you consider thinking that this is maybe something emotional? So Avi looked at him, and I look at him and say, what do you mean? He says, would you consider that this is a panic attack? And I say, a panic attack? What's a panic attack? And then he says, panic attack can have physical symptoms like a heart attack, and it like all the symptoms that you're describing describes a panic attack. Mm-hmm. And it was for the first time we actually heard of a thing called a panic attack. We didn't know what it is. And then he said, look, let's try doing some therapy and see how things work. And if things, get better, that it's, because if we check all the physical symptoms and everything is okay, then...
And the way your life were in Israel, you wouldn't be surprised that it would be panic.
Yeah, but we didn't...
Yes, yeah.
We didn't know what it is.
You didn't know. Well, you weren't really brought up in the world where probably you spoke so much about emotions, and you had such a great understanding of different issues.
Yeah, no, there was none of that. So then he started going to therapy. Actually, Rabbi Zobin that you had here in the podcast, he was one of the people that were very, very helpful to us in the beginning. And he helped us, find the right therapist and even sponsor us in some way. We're internally grateful for him. He's an amazing man. And then he goes to therapy, and he really sees things improving. But as he is discovering his journey, I'm like all of a sudden starting to realize and think to myself, okay, so he's having a panic attack. So is it normal that every single day around 12 o'clock, I would have a shaking episode and, lie in bed and have some sweatiness and my heart would pump and I feel like I collapse, every day. Is this a normal thing? Because I thought, it's normal for a mom that has 2 children and moves the country and works and running around and to get to this exhaustion stage every day at one is just exhaustion. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it's more than that. But because he was going through what he went through and we learned what panic attacks is, I said, wait, maybe that is not normal, that I'm pushing the buggy up the road and my hands are shaking and my kids are crying and I can't even attend them because I have this panic attack. I had no clue that this is something that's not normal. I thought that being in this survival mode of running around, schlepping, bringing, this is normal. It was a complete eye-opening for me that is not a normal thing. So then I spoke to Avi and we discussed maybe I should also go to therapy. Now, we didn't have the money for that. We were working hard, but we decided that this is an important cause, and we tried to find a therapist. It was very difficult to find a therapist because how do you even start? So a friend recommended us, and I said to Avi, look, I have a feeling that when I'm going to start therapy, I'm going to break down. You know, it's not going to be an easy time because up till now, everything was bottled in.
Yeah, sure.
And you kind of
most of your life was bottled in.
Yes. And here, unleashing it, it's going to be
an avalanche of emotions.
Yeah. And I don't know how I knew that, but I knew it's going to happen. And I remember going to therapy and coming back. Avi still worked in the evenings for some reason. He kept on working in the evenings. So I remember coming back home from therapy and having those really, really, really difficult nights where all the trauma and all the difficult moments that I used to face would just come up. And it would be even too much to bear that I even I would go for a drink to just let things ease, you know, and I would have like a cider. I wasn't having a lot of alcohol, and sit in front of the TV and watch movies and cry, and just finding ways to release that,
to soothe
that pain. In the beginning was very, very difficult, but with the time, my therapist just was amazing. She kind of taught me to recognize that I'm a person on my own and I need to invest in myself. And I started going to do exercise. I started going to study. I never studied anything in Satmar. So I ended up going to college here in the evenings, and I did my GCSEs, math and English.
Amazing.
It's not a degree.
No, but
something.
it's more than just something. Because you started off from nothing.
Yeah, I remember sitting there and starting off from zero. It wasn't even GCSEs, it goes functional skills, level 1, 2, and 3. And then it's GCSEs. So I did it in 3 years. But it wasn't just the studying, it was just investing in myself. It was the time of investing.
Yes, yeah, which you hadn't done for your whole life.
Yeah, and I wasn't wearing the hat of a mom or a wife then. It was just me going to study and nurturing myself, going out in the evening, going for a run, and exercising. And this gave me a lot. It's opened up a world of self-care, understanding, and the panic attacks went less and less. And I could see how I can manage much more in life.
So you had community, you had more support. I mean, Avi was probably also vital because you were going through this together. Unfortunately, sort of everything you had, your sister didn't really have that. You know, you can see that all that input that you started getting so late in your life, the community support that you had here in London and Avi's support that you're both going through the journey together. You've now had getting therapy for both of you, but everything that you had that really took you from nothing, your sister, unfortunately, she didn't get that.
No, she didn't get it. And when I went back to my family in Israel, I tried to help her out, to find a space to stay. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough for her. And when I came back from this trip, I got the phone call from my mom saying that unfortunately it happened. And by that point, I was already ready that some scenario like that would happen because of all the attempts before. I was already speaking to Avi and I said to him, what do we do when this happens?
She said that she's taken her life.
Yes, that they found her body and she is no longer with us. I remember not crying. It was just like a block. And then I said to Avi beforehand, we said, what do we do if this happens? He says, you stop life and you go and grieve your sister. And this is what exactly happened. Unfortunately, I didn't get to the Levaya. And also my dad didn't get to the Levaya. My dad works often in New York, and he was in New York. And my brothers decided to bury her very quickly for two reasons. One of the reasons was because they didn't know, she was missing for a couple of days, so they didn't know how long the body was lying. And then the other reason, that was the main reason, was they didn't want bad publicity. Because they were scared that the secular friends will come and then they will make a big thing out of it. And they will show it in the internet, and he wanted to avoid it. So unfortunately, I didn't get to the Levaya, and my dad didn't get to the Levaya, and I decided to actually break down the Shiva into two. And I think it was a really good decision. I was staying there for half of the time and half of the time back at home, because I felt like I needed my community that I build now to grieve with me. I didn't need only my family to grieve with. I needed my support system, and that moment was like so empowering, because I had tons of people coming, and I had no idea that I have that many friends, and the amount of support of meals and rotas and all of those type of things were like incredible. That was a little comfort, and a big comfort.
Yes, the most awful time. Yeah. Wow, Racheli, that's quite a journey, and now sort of you've now sort of taken to art. I mean, you were very creative. You said you are. Is art the way that you sort of cope with, I mean, the trauma and the struggle and the difficulties that you've had in the past few years?
So as I mentioned before, that I was very creative and I did like a lot of art back in the community. Art was very technical. So when I came back from the Shiva, I had this incredible strong ache in my heart, and I felt like I need to express it somewhere. Like I need to do with it something. And I took a brush and a paint and a canvas, and I just splashed in the paint into it. I can show it to you later, the picture, but it was basically a very simple picture of a heart that you can see that there's the ache and it's bleeding tears out of it. And this was like, this opened a window of art that I didn't know even exists. It was a point where I was out of the survival mode, out into the healing time, where I can actually take the pain and take the experiences that I went through and express it into my paintings and into my art. And this is what I do today with my students as well. Like I really try
to you teach art.
Yeah, I try to give them the techniques, but I also try to engage their emotions and to take it out. Something that I learned very late on, that's possible.
Yes, well, it's like art is often as you said, it's the expression of feelings where you can't always put it into words.
Yeah, it's something that you will try to describe it, but you can't. It's something that you see rather than describe. And lately I've been trying to make I'm in the middle of making my story and one canvas. I don't think if I will manage.
Oh, wow.
I don't think if we manage to.
I can't imagine how you could fit that whole story. I mean, we've not even touched on some of the other aspects of the story. And that I don't know how you're going to fit onto a canvas.
No, it's only a glimpse. And I didn't mention it in the middle, but I actually studied animation and 3D modeling. So I'm trying to combine my physical art with the animation. So my vision is to create a physical painting that becomes an animated painting. So basically when you look at that, it comes to life. Still working out the logistics around it, but hopefully it will.
Incredible.
It's an honest process.
Amazing.
So and I feel like I want to finish with that note that I feel really privileged to be in that stage of life where I can really enjoy life from a place where I still do and done the work of the emotional work, and not to sit in the pain, not to sit in the past, to go forward, to rebuild yourself, to give a stable home for your children, to be a source of goodness and happiness, and not stay stuck, because often people stay stuck in their old stories. So art has definitely been a very good way to express it.
Wow, amazing. Racheli, it's an inspiring story about you yourself and how you've dealt with Avi through all the struggles and the resilience that you've shown, and the fact that you're here smiling through it all is unbelievable. And we just thank you for giving us the privilege between the lines of getting a window into your life and your journey, where you've come from Satmar Yerushalayim to Chabad and Hendon and all that in between. It's unbelievable, and thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. And I hope that will give some hope and some courage for people that they think that this journey is not possible. They should know that there is actually a massive, beautiful community that's just waiting there to hug them and help them out like they did for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.